Senior year homecoming wasn't supposed to be like this. My name is Chris John Anderson, but everyone calls me CJ. As captain of the football team, I'm living the high school dream. Or so I thought. On weekends, I swap my jersey for a set of dice and dive into Dungeons & Dragons campaigns with my best friend, Jake Thompson. Jake's the unassuming trumpet player in the school band and secretly a wizard on the saxophone. Most people don't know it, but he's got a solo performance lined up for halftime that's gonna blow everyone away. Despite not being popular, Jake has a talent that deserves the spotlight. As I was walking to lunch after third period, Jake caught up to me in the hall. "Hey CJ, you ready for next Friday?" Jake asked as we made our way to lunch. "More than ready," I replied, giving him a playful nudge. "I hear your solo is going to steal the show." Jake grinned, adjusting his glasses. "Well, let's just say I got a few tricks up my sleeve." We joined our usual table, the chatter of our friends blending into the background as my mind drifted to the game. Rumors were swirling that university scouts might be in the crowd, a chance for us seniors to catch some serious attention. The pressure was on, but it was exhilarating. After all, next week was homecoming. Across the cafeteria, a group of goth kids huddled together, their dark attire a stark contrast to the vibrant school spirit around them. They kept to themselves mostly, and we rarely crossed paths. Little did I know, their plans for homecoming were far more sinister than anyone could imagine. As homecoming week approached, the festivities reached a fever pitch. The halls were being decorated with banners and posters, each class competing to show the most spirit. Our team practiced harder than ever, Coach Miller pushing us to our limits. The band, including Jake, fine-tuned their routines, and the cheerleaders perfected their cheers. Every aspect of the school was gearing up for the big night. As the sun dipped below the horizon on Friday night, casting a warm glow over the city, we made our way to my house for our bi-weekly Dungeons & Dragons session. Nestled in my basement, surrounded by stacks of rulebooks and miniatures, we embarked on an epic quest that would transport us to far-off lands and challenge our imaginations. We were usually joined by a couple friends. Steve and Charlie were two members of the band and also dedicated dice rollers. Hours flew by in a blur of dice rolls and dramatic storytelling, laughter echoing off the walls as we navigated treacherous dungeons and encountered mythical beasts. Jake's creative flair shone through as he brought characters to life, his enthusiasm contagious as he regaled us with tales of daring feats and narrow escapes. "Okay, you are awoken from your rest by the sound of banging and voices of what you know to be the same goblins that you thought you vanquished long ago," Jake said with an ominous tone. "I wake up the other members of the Mustang Mercenaries and quietly let them know that we got company in our stronghold," I stated with confidence. "Give me a survival check with disadvantage as you navigate the halls of the stronghold in the dark," Jake was quick to respond. "Wait, shouldn't we have advantage on that roll because it's our place and we could navigate it with our eyes closed?" Steve quickly piped up. "Good point. Advantage cancels out disadvantage. Give me a straight roll then," Jake said with a satisfying grin. Amidst the excitement of our adventure, we found time for lighthearted banter and heartfelt conversations. We shared experiences and dreams for the future. As the sun started peeking through the curtains, we had to draw our game to a close, rolling up in our sleeping bags in the basement like a crew of adventurers. We slept until early afternoon on Saturday. With the weekend drawing to a close and the prospect of homecoming week looming on the horizon, Jake and I parted ways, each filled with a sense of anticipation for the days ahead. Little did we know, the events of the coming week would test us in ways we never imagined, and the tranquility of the weekend would soon be overshadowed by chaos. But for now, We reveled in the simple joy of friendship and camaraderie, knowing that no matter what the future held, we got each other's backs. Homecoming week kicked off on Monday with Spirit Week, a tradition that saw Cedar Rock High transformed into a carnival of creativity and school pride. Each day had a different theme, and students went all out to showcase their Mustang spirit. Monday was Pajama Day, with students strolling the halls in their most comfortable or just ridiculous sleepwear. The usually serious atmosphere of the classrooms was replaced with laughter and smiles, setting a joyful tone for the week. Jake and I had similar pajama sets with little D20 dice patterns, a subtle nod to our D&D sessions. "Nice pajamas, CJ," called out Sarah, one of the cheerleaders, as we passed her in the hall. Thanks, Sarah. Loving the unicorn onesie," I replied, earning a grin from her. Tuesday was Twin Day. Jake and I dressed as characters from our favorite sci-fi series, Firefly, complete with faux red leather jackets and toy blasters. The whole school got in on the act, and the hallways were filled with pairs and matching outfits, from superheroes to famous duos from pop culture. By Wednesday, the anticipation for the big game was starting to build. It was Decades Day, and each class had a different decade to represent. The seniors got the 80s, which meant big hair, neon colors, rolled jeans, and plenty of denim. The school buzzed with excitement as students showcased their retro looks. The pep rally that afternoon was a huge success, with the cheerleaders performing an 80s-themed routine and the band playing classic hits. "Can you believe it's already halfway through Spirit Week?" Jake asked as we walked to our next class. "I know," I said with a hint of despair. "It's going way too fast. You know, that's the worst thing about senior year. However, time flies when you're having fun," I said, adjusting my neon headband. "But Friday can't come soon enough. I'm ready to crush me some Jaguars." Thursday, the final day before the big game, was Class Color Day. Seniors wore the school's black and orange, juniors in green, sophomores in blue, and freshmen in yellow. The halls were a vibrant display of school pride, and the sense of camaraderie was everywhere. Throughout the day, students worked on the final touches for their class floats, which would be showcased in the homecoming parade. During lunch, a heated debate about the homecoming king and queen nominees dominated the conversation. Posters and flyers decorated the walls, each campaign trying to outdo the other with catchy slogans and promises of school spirit. "Have you voted yet?" asked Jake, sliding into the seat across from me in the cafeteria. Not yet. I'll do it after lunch," I replied. "Who are you voting for?" Jake shrugged. "Not sure yet. There are a lot of good candidates this year." In the afternoon, the anticipation for the homecoming game and dance reached new heights. Coach Miller gathered the football team for a brief meeting after practice, reminding us of the importance of the upcoming game against the Rock Ridge Jaguars. "Tomorrow is the culmination of all your hard work," Coach Miller said, pacing in front of us. "Yes, the rumors are true. We've got scouts coming, so let's show them what Cedar Rock pride looks like." "No pressure, Anderson," erupted a voice from Schmidt, our biggest linebacker. "If anyone needs to worry about pressure, it should be you keeping that Jaguar line in check," I said with a smirk. "All right, enough chatter, you two. Save the energy for the field," Coach Miller commanded. "Just 'cause it's Thursday doesn't mean we let our guards down. Anderson, run the team through patterns. Move out, Mustangs!" With that, we cleared the locker room and took to the field for the last practice before the big game. After practice, I caught up with Jake, who was putting the finishing touches on his saxophone solo for the halftime show. His determination and talent never ceased to amaze me. "You're gonna kill it tomorrow, Jake," I said, slapping him on the back. "Thanks, CJ. Let's both nail it tomorrow," he replied with a determined smile. As Thursday drew to a close, the excitement for homecoming was crazy. The entire school, from freshmen to seniors, was united in anticipation of the festivities. Little did we know, we were less than 24 hours from sheer madness. Friday morning dawned with a crispness in the air, signaling the start of the most anticipated day of the year at Cedar Rock High, Homecoming Day. The morning weather report showed a clear day and night, the perfect setting for the big game. The excitement that had been building all week reached its peak, and the entire school was buzzing with energy. The biggest event of the day, second to game night, was the announcement of the homecoming king and queen. The voting had taken place over the past week, and everyone was eager to hear the results. The school gathered in the gymnasium during last period for the pre-game pep rally, where the announcement would be made. The bleachers were packed, with students decked out in orange and black, waving pom-poms and cheering as the band played the school fight song. Principal Harris took the stage, his voice amplified over the exciting chatter. "Good afternoon, Mustangs! Today is the day we've all been waiting for. Are you ready to crown your homecoming king and queen?" The crowd erupted in cheers. Jake and I stood with the football team, our eyes scanning the room. The anticipation was electric. Principal Harris continued, "Our homecoming king and queen have been chosen by your votes. Without further ado, your 2024 homecoming king and queen are CJ Anderson and Samantha Lee." The gym exploded in applause as Samantha and I made our way to the center of the gym. We were each handed crowns and sashes, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and humility as we waved to our classmates. Samantha, always graceful and kind, beamed beside me. Thank you, everyone," I said into the microphone, my voice barely audible over the cheers. "Let's make tonight one for the history books." I couldn't resist starting a wall-shaking chant of "Mustangs! Mustangs! Mustangs!" After the pep rally, the festivities moved out to Main Street for the homecoming parade. The parade was a beloved tradition, with floats designed by various school clubs and classes making their way through downtown Cedar Rock. The streets were lined with spectators, many of them alumni who returned each year to relive their high school glory days. The senior class float, a massive orange and black Mustang, led the parade. Jake marched with the band, his trumpet shining in the sunlight. The cheerleaders performed acrobatic stunts, and students tossed candy to the children who watched with wide eyes from the sidewalks. As our float passed by, I caught sight of my parents in the crowd, waving enthusiastically. Their pride was evident, and it fueled my determination to make the night special. The parade ended at the high school, where students dispersed to prepare for the evening's events. The hours between the parade and the game seemed to fly by. The football team gathered in the locker room for a final pep talk from Coach Miller. His voice was steady and strong, filled with the confidence he had in us. "Tonight, we face our biggest rivals, the Rock Ridge Jaguars. We've trained hard, we've played hard, and now it's time to show everyone what the Cedar Rock Mustangs are made of. Play with heart, play with pride, and leave everything on that field." As we donned our uniforms, the weight of the night settled in. This was more than just a game. It was a chance to prove ourselves, to shine under the Friday night lights. In the band room, Jake and his fellow musicians tuned their instruments and rehearsed their routines. The excitement was electric. The knowledge that this was their moment to support the team and entertain the crowd drove them forward. As the sun began to set, the stadium lights flickered on, illuminating the field. The stands filled with students, parents, and townspeople, all eager to witness the showdown between the Mustangs and the Jaguars. The air was thick with anticipation, every cheer and chant echoing with the promise of an unforgettable night. Little did we know, the events of the evening would transcend the bounds of tradition, pushing us into a realm of chaos and survival. But for now, the excitement of homecoming, the pride of our school, and the thrill of the game ahead filled our hearts and minds. Even though the town's focus was on the game, another event was being planned. The previous night, while the rest of Cedar Rock High was lost in dreams of homecoming glory, a different kind of anticipation simmered in the shadows. In the dimly lit basement of a rundown house on the edge of town, 5 teenagers gathered around a rickety table covered in arcane symbols and an ancient tome. The leader of the group, a brooding figure named Ethan, leaned over a yellowish page, his dark hair falling into his eyes. "This is it," he murmured, his voice low and intense. "The ritual that will finally give us the power to stick it to those stuck-up preppies." Alyssa, the only girl in the group, pushed her black-rimmed glasses up her nose and frowned. "Are you sure about this, Ethan? Summoning a demon is serious. It's not like our usual pranks." "Yeah," chimed in Max, the youngest and most nervous of the group. "What if something goes wrong?" Ethan straightened up, his eyes flashing with determination. "Nothing will go wrong if we follow the instructions. Besides, we're not just messing around this time. We're going to show them all that we're not to be ignored." At the other end of the table, twins Damon and Drake exchanged glances. Damon shrugged, a crooked smile playing on his lips. "I'm in. Let's make this homecoming one they'll never forget." Drake nodded in agreement. "I'm tired of being invisible. It's time they noticed us." With the group consensus reached, they began gathering the necessary items for the ritual. The list was long and strange. Black candles, chalk for the pentagram, herbs and oils with names none of them could pronounce, a picture of their target, and a small vial of animal blood. Ethan had assured them that it was only animal blood, but the queasiness in Max's stomach told him otherwise. Friday afternoon, while the rest of Cedar Rock High reveled in the homecoming festivities, the goth group was holed up in the basement, finalizing their plans. Ethan spread out a large piece of black cloth on the floor, marking out the pentagram with meticulous care. The others busied themselves with the rest of the preparations, their excitement mingled with a touch of fear. "Where did you get all this stuff, Ethan?" Alyssa asked as she placed the candles at each point of the pentagram. "Some of it I found online, the rest from an old occult shop in town," Ethan replied. "It doesn't matter where it came from. What matters is that it works." As they worked, their conversation drifted to their grievances with the school's social hierarchy. "It's always the same," Drake said bitterly. "The jocks and cheerleaders get everything, and we get ignored." "Not this time," Damon added, lighting the candles. "This time, they'll remember us." Max, trying to steady his nerves, looked at Ethan. "Are we really going to go through with this? What if it gets out of control?" Ethan's expression hardened. "We're doing this. We deserve to be seen. And if a little chaos is what it takes, then so be it." With everything in place, Ethan stepped back and surveyed their work. The basement was filled with the flickering lights of the candles. The scent of herbs and oils thick in the air. The pentagram, drawn in stark white chalk, seemed to almost glow in the dim light. "After halftime," Ethan said, his voice barely a whisper, "we'll perform the ritual behind the bleachers. everyone will be distracted by the game. It's the perfect time. Alyssa nodded, though she couldn't shake the feeling of dread settling in her stomach. And then what? Ethan's eyes gleamed with a mixture of excitement and malice. And then we show them who really holds the power. As the final bell rang at Cedar Rock High, signaling the end of the school day, the goth group dispersed, each member heading home to prepare for the night. Their minds buzzed with anticipation and a hint of fear, but none of them wavered. Tonight, they would make their stand. While the rest of the school participated in the homecoming parade, the goth group met again to go over the details one last time. The small basement buzzed with nervous energy as Ethan reiterated the plan, his voice filled with a conviction that masked his own anxieties. Remember, we stick to the plan. We meet behind the bleachers at halftime, but then everyone will be focused on the game. No one will see us. The others nodded, their faces a mix of determination and apprehension. As the sun began to set and the parade drew to a close, the goth group dispersed once more, each heading to their respective homes to prepare for the night ahead. The final countdown had begun, and the weight of their impending actions pressed heavily on their minds. Little did they know, the events they were about to set in motion would unleash a nightmare far beyond their darkest imaginings. Friday night under the Texas sky meant one thing: football. As the sun set, the Cedar Rock High School stadium filled to capacity. The smell of popcorn and grilled burgers and the energy coursing through the air created an atmosphere unlike any other. This was homecoming, and the Mustangs were ready to face their rivals, the Rock Ridge Jaguars. The stands were a sea of orange and black, with fans waving banners and shouting cheers. Parents, students, alumni, and townspeople packed the bleachers, eager for the showdown. The announcer's voice boomed over the PA system, introducing the players as they took the field to thunderous applause. "Let's go, Mustangs!" shouted my dad from his spot in the stands. I could see him waving a foam finger, a huge grin on his face. The whole town was here, and the pressure was on. Coach Miller gathered the team for a final huddle before kickoff, his grizzled face, lined with years of coaching experience, radiated determination. "Tonight, we play not just for ourselves, but for everyone in this town. We've trained hard, and now it's time to show them what we're made of. Leave everything on the field." We shouted in unison, adrenaline pumping through our veins. As the referee blew the whistle to start the game, I took my position as quarterback, my eyes scanning the field. The Jaguars were tough opponents, but we were ready. The first quarter was intense. Both teams fought fiercely, trading blows like heavyweight boxers. Our offense was sharp, with quick passes and strong runs. I connected with our star wide receiver, Marcus, for a couple of solid gains, but the Jaguars' defense was relentless, and points were hard to come by. By the second quarter, we managed to break through their defenses. With a play-action pass, I found Marcus open downfield. He caught the ball and sprinted to the end zone. The crowd erupted in cheers as we scored the first touchdown of the game. The scoreboard lit up. Mustangs 7, Jaguars 0. The Jaguars struck back quickly, the running back slicing through our defense to even the score. The back and forth continued, each team refusing to give an inch. As the clock ticked down to halftime, the score stood tied at 14-14. You could cut the tension with a knife. While the players caught their breath, retired to their respective locker rooms, and strategized for the second half, the halftime show preparations began. The band, dressed in crisp uniforms, assembled on the sidelines. Jake adjusted his trumpet, his face a mask of concentration. Tonight, he would switch to his secret weapon, the saxophone. The cheerleaders lined up, pom-poms in hand, ready to dazzle the crowd with their acrobatics. The homecoming court took their places, Samantha and I at the center, our crowns glinting under the stadium lights. It was hard for me to feel like royalty wearing my football gear and sweating like a pig. The announcer's voice echoed through the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Cedar Rock High School Marching Band and cheerleaders for our homecoming halftime show. The band launched into a rousing medley of pop hits, their music filling the night air. The cheerleaders danced and flipped, drawing cheers and applause from the crowd. Then came the moment everyone has been waiting for. Jake stepped forward, his saxophone gleaming under the lights. He took a deep breath and began to play, the soulful notes soaring over the field. The crowd fell silent, mesmerized by his performance. Even the most hardened football fans couldn't help but be moved by the music. As Jake's solo reached its crescendo, the band joined in, creating a powerful harmony that echoed through the stadium. The cheerleaders formed a pyramid, raising Samantha and me high into the air. The final notes of the saxophone solo hung in the air. A moment of pure magic. The crowd erupted into applause, the energy surging back to a fever pitch. Jake rejoined the band, giving me a passing fist bump on the way with his face flushed with pride. As the halftime show concluded, the players took the field once more, ready to fight for victory in the second half. Meanwhile, behind the bleachers, the goth group prepared for their own show. Ethan and his crew gathered their supplies, their eyes glinting with a mix of fear and excitement. Ethan produced the old ritual book that looked like something from the Dark Ages. They waited for the perfect moment to start the ritual, oblivious to the fact that the stakes of this game were about to become higher than anyone could have imagined. The second half of the game began with renewed intensity. The Mustangs and Jaguars battled fiercely, each team driven by the roar of the crowd. The scoreboard showed 21-21. The tension mounted with every play. The stadium lights blazed down on the field, casting long shadows as the players gave their all. Behind the bleachers, hidden from the cheering crowd, Ethan and his group gathered around the pentagram they had painstakingly drawn. The black candles flickered in the night air, casting eerie shadows on their faces. Alyssa clutched the vial of blood, her hands trembling. "Are you ready?" Ethan asked, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. Alyssa nodded, though her heart pounded in her chest. "Let's do this." They took their positions at each point of the pentagram. The ritual's instructions burned into their minds. Ethan began to chant, his voice low and rhythmic. The others joined in, their voices blending into a haunting melody. As the chant grew louder, Alyssa threw the picture down and poured the blood into the center of the pentagram. The air around them seemed to thicken, a foreboding energy crackling in the night. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and a low rumble echoed from deep within the earth. The goth kids exchanged nervous glances, the reality of their actions sinking in. Suddenly, a blinding flash of red light erupted from the pentagram, and a column of smoke rose into the sky. The chanting stopped abruptly, the group frozen in terror. From within the smoke, a monstrous figure began to emerge. The creature was massive, towering over them with glowing red eyes and jagged, demon-like features. Its skin was a rugged and spiked black and red, and it exuded an aura of pure malice. "What have we done?" Max whispered, his voice barely audible over the creature's growls. Ethan stepped back, his eyes wide with terror. This wasn't supposed to happen." The demon let out a deafening roar. its voice shaking the very air around them. It lunged forward, swiping at the nearest goth kid. Drake was caught in its massive claws, lifted off the ground, and crushed with a sickening crunch. Blood spattered across the pentagram, and the others screamed in terror. "We have to get out of here!" Alyssa shouted, her voice breaking. As the demon turned its attention to Damon, the group scattered, running for their lives. Damon tried to dodge, but the creature's speed was unmatched. It caught him and threw him aside like a rag doll, his body hitting the ground with a lifeless thud. Ethan, Alyssa, and Max sprinted towards the field, their hearts pounding in their chests. The demon roared again, the sound echoing across the field and halting the game in its tracks. The crowd's cheers turned to screams as they saw the monstrous figure looming behind the bleachers. Chaos erupted. Players, cheerleaders, and fans scattered in all directions, desperately trying to escape the nightmare that had been unleashed. Jake, still clutching his saxophone, spotted me on the field. "Run, CJ! Get to the school!" he shouted. We didn't need to be told twice. Both teams bolted towards the nearest building, our teammates and classmates following close behind. The demon rampaged through the field, its massive form cutting a swath of destruction. It grabbed at fleeing students, its claws tearing through anything and everything in its path. Ethan, Alyssa, and Max stumbled through the chaos, their faces pale with fear and guilt. They had unleashed this horror, and now it was tearing their world apart. As we reached the doors of the school, I grabbed Jake and pulled him inside, slamming the door behind us. "What the hell is that thing?" Jake said with a shaking tone. "I got no friggin' idea," I replied in a combination of shock and panic. We need to find a way to stop it," I gasped, trying to catch my breath. "There has to be something we can do." Jake nodded, his face grim. "Let's start by surviving first." The rest of the crowd that made it to safety huddled together, the screams and roars of the demon echoing outside. The safety of the school walls felt fragile, but it was all we had. Fear gripped us, but so did a fierce determination to survive. We weren't just going to survive this night. We were going to fight back. Nobody screws with my homecoming. Hell be damned. Inside the dimly lit corridors of Cedar Rock High, people were huddled together, their hearts pounding in fear. The echoing roars of this amalgamation of a Lord of the Rings Balrog / Ghostbusters demon dog reverberated through the school, each thunderous footstep sending shivers down their spines. Somehow, we knew we were its targets, and there was nowhere to hide. "Stay quiet," I whispered, my voice barely a breath. "We need to find a way to outsmart it." Jake nodded, his eyes wide with apprehension. "But how? It's hunting us, and it won't stop until it finds us." As we crept through the halls, every echo of footfalls and every flicker of movement sent us into a frenzy of panic. The darkness seemed to swallow us whole, our only refuge the feeble glow of emergency exit signs and distant flickering lights. We were mice, scurrying through the labyrinth of the school, hoping to evade the hungry gaze of the demon that hunted us. Suddenly, a deafening crash echoed from down the hallway, followed by the sound of splintering wood. The hell beast was close, its thundering footsteps drawing nearer with each passing moment. We pressed ourselves against the walls, our breaths held in terror. Through the gloom, I caught sight of a door slightly ajar. Without hesitation, I motioned for the others to follow as I darted inside. We found ourselves in a darkened classroom, the desks and chairs overturned in a chaotic mess. It was a temporary sanctuary, a brief respite from the relentless pursuit outside. As we huddled together in the shadows, I could feel the weight of our situation pressing down on us. The demon was out there, its fiery gaze searching for us, its hunger driving it even closer. We were running out of time, running out of options. "We need a plan," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We can't just hide here forever." Jake nodded. "Agreed. But what can we do? We're no match for that thing." Suddenly, a memory surfaced in my mind, a distant echo from our weekend D&D game. My character, trapped in the halls of his own stronghold, evading enemies in the darkness. I remembered the role he had asked us to make, the balance of advantage and disadvantage that had determined our fates. "Straight roll," I said, my voice gaining strength. "We know this school like the back of our hands. We can use that to our advantage." The others looked at me, uncertainty written on their faces, but as the plan began to take shape in my mind, I could see the glimmer of hope in their eyes. "We need to stick to the darkness," I said, my voice steady, "and then we run. We run like hell, and we don't stop until we're out of here." One of our friends stepped forward, determination shining in his eyes. "I'll go to the gym and provide a distraction," he said. "You guys get ready to move." As he disappeared into the darkness, Jake grabbed my arm, his expression urgent. "I have an idea," he said, his voice low. "Follow me." With a sense of purpose, we slipped out of the classroom and into the shadowy corridors beyond. The demon's roars echoed in the distance, driving us forward as we made our way through the darkness. We were outnumbered, outmatched, but here in our stronghold, we at least had a fighting chance. As Jake led me towards the science lab, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to turn the tide against the demon that hunted us. But as we reached the door of the lab, I knew that our battle had only just begun. In the dimly lit confines of the science lab, Jake outlined his plan with a sense of urgency that matched the pounding of our hearts. The liquid nitrogen tanks stood ready, their cold contents promising a temporary reprieve from the demon's relentless pursuit. "We'll trip the tanks as it enters the room," Jake explained, his voice low but determined. "It'll buy us some time to get out of here." I nodded, my mind racing with the gravity of our situation. "And then what? We can't just keep running forever." "We head back to the summoning circle," Jake replied. "We need to reverse the ritual before it's too late. You know, just like Sam and Dean did so many times." With a silent understanding, we set to work, rigging the liquid nitrogen tanks with a makeshift tripwire. There was so much tension in the air as we made our final preparations, each movement fraught with the knowledge that our lives hung in the balance. As we crouched in the shadows, waiting for the demon to make its entrance, frustration and fear bubbled to the surface in whispered conversations. "This is insane," I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. "We're risking everything on a plan we saw in a TV show." "But it's all we've got," Jake replied, his tone grim. "We have to try." The sound of approaching footsteps shattered the stillness, sending a shiver down my spine. The demon was close, its presence a looming shadow in the darkness. With a silent prayer, I braced myself for the inevitable confrontation. As the door swung open, a tripwire snapped, and the liquid nitrogen tanks erupted in a cloud of freezing mist. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as the demon stumbled backward, its movements slowed to a halt by the icy blast. It was our chance to escape, our chance to make a break for the safety of the summoning circle. Without hesitation, we bolted from the lab, our footsteps echoing through the empty halls, the combination of adrenaline and fear driving us forward with a desperate urgency. As we raced through the dark halls to the field exit, I glanced back over my shoulder, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hey, goth bastards! We need to trap it!" I shouted into the darkness, my voice filled with frustration and determination. "Meet us where you summoned it and clean up your mess!" With the demon distracted by its temporary frozen prison, we headed in the direction of the bleachers by the football field. Every step brought us closer to our goal, closer to the chance to set things right. As we reached a pentagram circle, 3 goth kids came racing up to offer their assistance. We heard the demon howl in rage from inside the school, mixed with the sound of a tripped fire alarm. My eyes darted right at the Hot Topic rejects. Well, make it happen. Return this damn thing back to sender, I yelled. Ethan picked up the book and found the page to reverse the spells. We need the components. A salt circle to trap it, animal blood, candles, and a chanting of 5 members. It's always something, Jake said, pointing his finger at Ethan. Stupid damn idiots! Damn it, damn it, damn it! Max's! We need to head to Max's for supplies, I blurted out. Jake followed up. Quick! Everyone to my truck! Let's go! All 5 of us raced to Jake's 2005 blue Dodge Ram. The beast was crossing the field, making a beeline directly for us as Jake fired up the truck and gunned it out of the parking lot and down the road. The demon slowly getting smaller as we created distance between it and us. As we made our way across town, we needed to get our strategy right by the time we reached Max's supermarket, the main grocery store in town. Salt's the easy part, but what about the animal blood? I questioned to the group. Dude, my dad's the head butcher in the meat department, Jake reminded me. A huge part of his job is throwing away extra blood from the packaging of the beef and pork. Did you hear that back there? Y'all are lucky, but you better be studying that damn book and get this right when it comes down to it. Ethan responded with hesitation. Yes, of course. Then he buried his nose in the book with his 2 friends looking over his shoulders. Hey, I said, why is it after us? Max spoke up and said, to summon it, we needed a target. We chose a newspaper picture of you. He lowered his head after that statement. Jake glanced over at me. Well, we know who's the bait now. I shot a cold stare back at him. Dude, not cool. Jake took a sharp right turn right into Max's parking lot and parked the truck right at the entrance. A shout came from an employee to move the truck, but Jake said that it's an emergency and there was an accident at the school. We all ran into the building yelling at people to get out of the store. All we got was some strange looks. Jake directed the goth kids to get a couple of 10-pound bags of salt from the dry goods section in aisle 6 as we raced back to the meat department. When we got there, Henry, Jake's dad's assistant, was working the counter. Jake asked if Henry threw away the drained blood yet. That's a weird question, Jake. What do you need it for? Some science experiment? Henry questioned. Then he pointed to the right sink in the back. Just as Jake was about to go behind the meat department counter, he was stopped by a combined sound of breaking glass, screaming, and roaring. It's here. The goth kids emerged in sight of us running with the salt, and Jake yelled for them to head for the truck through the side exit and wait there. He ushered one of them to come and get the container that he filled up with the animal blood and take it with them. Aw, damn! We don't have time for this! We gotta think up something here, I said to no one. Jake looked over to Henry. How big is the freezer? Henry responded instantly. Well, you can fit your truck in there. That's just what I needed to hear. Do you mind being bait, dude? Jake said as he started running for the cooking aisle. I got an idea. I quickly followed him and he pointed at the cooking oil amongst the sound of carnage happening up front near the registers. Seriously? Are you cooking up a Home Alone thing? I remarked at him as we grabbed the big jugs of canola oil. I see what you got in mind. We raced back to the stockroom and opened up the meat freezer door. We cracked open the bottles of cooking oil and started pouring a long, wide line from the entrance of the freezer to about 5 feet out. I came out of the back doors of the stockroom and yelled, "Come get me, you bastard!" as loud as I could. Well, that got its attention. It stormed through the aisles at a surprising pace as I turned and headed back, crashing through the backroom doors. As I rounded the corner to the freezer, in my panic, I forgot to slow down. The beast was almost on top of me as I slipped and started to slide into the freezer. Jake reached out his hand and I grabbed it as he pulled me to the side. As he was pulling me, I felt this white, hot, sharp pain in my right shoulder as the demon's claw sliced the outside of my right arm. With that, it slammed into the freezer. I got up as Jake was pushing the freezer door closed and jamming the lockdown. Ugh, I hate to sound like a broken record, but that ain't gonna hold it for long, I said, wincing. Can you run? Jake asked with concern in his eyes. 'Tis but a scratch, I tried to say in my best Monty Python Black Knight accent. We bolted for the truck. As much as I wanted to help, we had to ignore the poor victims of the monster's rampage. We got in the truck, and Jake threw it into gear, and we sped off back to the school. I looked back at the three goth kids. We good? Ethan came back with, Are you? Yeah, and I just had a thought. Hey Jake, remember Mr. Brown's lecture in biology class about predatory behavior? I quizzed him. Yeah, where are you going with this? He asked with a confused glance. A predator usually doesn't fall for a prey's tricks until the prey becomes injured. Ah, then it's so focused on the kill that it ignores everything else. Right, I said as I hung my bleeding arm out the window so that my blood drips on the way to the school. Sorry, but I'm gonna get your truck a little dirty. Jake pulled up as close as he could to the bleachers as we piled out of his Dodge. The goth kids quickly cracked open the salt bags and made a white circle around the pentagram. Ethan informed us of where we must stand and what to say when it's time. I stood in the center of the pentagram to be the bait one more time. I put the small plastic container of animal blood next to my foot in anticipation of the demon's arrival. I didn't have to wait long, as the sound of roaring and the thunder of running approached our location. I instantly stomped on the little blood container, wiped my shoe off, and stepped back just outside the salt circle. When the creature got about 10 feet away, it jumped and lunged for me. Not only a foot in front of me, it crashed into the invisible barrier and landed on the pentagram. Like a caged animal, it thrashed and clawed at its invisible prison. It snarled and drooled at me like a starving dog. We all took our places at the points of the pentagram, and Ethan led the incantation. No more than a few chants in, a blinding white light slammed down from the sky into the circle, and the demon that brought terror to Cedar Rock disintegrated into ashes before our eyes. We have to destroy the summoning circle, I said, my voice heavy with resolve, and the book you used for the ritual. We can't let this happen again. With a sense of urgency, we set to work, dismantling the circle and burning the book until there was nothing left. The darkness that had threatened to consume us was finally vanquished, but the scars it left behind would not soon be forgotten. As we stood amidst the ruins of our ordeal, we understood that this would scar us for life. How the hell were we to move on from this? The aftermath of the nightmarish events that unfolded at Cedar Rock High left a heavy toll hanging over the once vibrant halls. As the stadium lights glowed, casting a feeble light through shattered windows, the true extent of the carnage became painfully clear. We sat on the bleachers as EMTs, first responders, police, and the fire department arrived on site. Amidst the wreckage, survivors sifted through the debris, searching for any signs of life amidst the devastation. But for many, the search yielded only heartache and despair. On the dimly lit field, where just hours before cheers had rung out in celebration, now lay the somber remnants of a battle fought and lost. Bodies lay strewn across the blood-stained turf, a grim testament to the horrors that had unfolded. Among the fallen were classmates and friends, their lives cut tragically short by forces beyond their control. Tears mingled with the blood that pooled beneath their still forms, a silent lament for lives lost too soon. As the survivors gathered amidst the wreckage, their faces drawn and pale with grief, the weight of their loss hung heavy in the air. Parents wept for children taken too soon. Siblings mourned for brothers and sisters lost in the chaos. For Jake and myself, the night had brought a darkness from which there could be no escape. As we surveyed the scene around us, the reality of our ordeal sank in with crushing force. I didn't have much time to sit and reflect as I was guided to the ambulance to get my arm treated. But amidst the devastation, there was a glimmer of hope. Amidst the chaos and despair, both Jake and my parents had emerged from the night unscathed. As they embraced us amidst the rubble, tears of relief mingled with tears of sorrow. In the days that followed, the truth of what had transpired began to emerge, casting a long shadow over the once idyllic town of Cedar Rock. The surviving goth kids were eventually charged with murder and domestic terrorism, their misguided actions leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. They were too young to be tried as adults, so they would be sent to juvie until their 18th birthdays. Then their fates as adults will be determined. But even as justice was served, the wounds left behind by that fateful night refused to heal. Families were torn apart, communities left shattered in the wake of tragedy. The specter of loss loomed large over Cedar Rock, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that lurked just beyond the surface. And as we stood amidst the ruin of our shattered world, we vowed to never forget the lessons we have learned, to never again let darkness reign unchecked. We may have won against evil, but we lost so much. Don't let jealousy or resentment cause you to do something that can't be taken back or undone. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed my story. This whole thing started as a fun script, and it just evolved into a labor of love, a passion project. Because, I apologize for the length of the story, but I really hope that it drew you in. Some things I've changed about the story, about how I do my stories now, is music-wise, I try to do background music for different moods of the different parts of the story. Let me know if that actually worked for you or not. I added some sound effects as well, because I think that draws you into the ambiance of the whole experience. And remember, the pictures are for aesthetic purposes, because this is more of like a listening experience. But I did have a lot of fun with the AI making the pictures for the whole story. Couple of things that AI cannot figure out is how to keep consistency with character faces, words, the Mustang logo, and how a city is laid out, things like that. But they created fun pictures, so that's always enjoyable. So when it came to the script, it was mostly, it started out as 70% me, 30% the AI, but the final script turned out to be 90% me. The AI wanted to put a cap on and end the story right after we ran out of the high school and magically had the items for the pentagram. I was not cool with that. I decided to add the whole supermarket scene and the gathering of items to bring it back to the school. I think that added more suspense for the story. So that's what I got. This took about a week and a half. Most stories I expect to do about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And I already have the idea for the next story. And the AI gave me a fun little brainstorming idea, and I'm gonna run with it and see where it goes. So I really hope you're enjoying things as they're being mapped out right now. And I'm just having a blast making this for you. Once again, let me say this, and I sound like a broken record every time. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Liking it actually really helps me a lot. It helps everybody out a lot. Any YouTube channel. So in the description, I gave the appropriate credit to the background music artists that I use for the stories. I also added a Buy Me a Coffee link. It's not required, but it is welcomed. I do go through a lot of coffee to make all this stuff, so it really is appreciated. So with that, it's okay to be scared. I am too. Embrace the strange and embrace your imagination. And I'll see you next time.